Serious, what was the last situation where some weird stuff went down and everyone acted like it was normal, and you weren't sure if you were crazy or everyone around you was crazy? Out at a restaurant with my wife and her family. My mother-in-law starts joking on her food. No one does anything. So I go to help. Did basic first aid years ago. 5 hits to center of back. Nothing. She is now foaming at the mouth. Go to try Heimlich maneuver. On third thrust this huge lump of lamb comes up and lands in her plate. Her husband, son and other daughter look at me. Say nothing and carry on eating their food. I sit down, look at my wife and feel like I am an alternative reality. Did that just happen? Was it really that inconsequential? To this day only my wife acknowledges what happened and that I saved her mum's life in the middle of a busy restaurant. I twitch when I think about it still years later. Jesus. The bystander effect. That's some scary stuff. Good for you taking action. I was working in the United Arab Emirates. One night. I walking on a busy boardwalk with a lot of people from all over the world. This South Asian guy was standing by a lamppost. Not really doing anything. When an SUV pulled up and 4 Emirati Arabs got out. Grabbed the guy and threw him into the back and then drove off. They didn't yell. Didn't show any police badges. The guy barely fought back. Nobody said or did anything. Even though the street was crowded full of people. Well, that's terrifying. In Mexico you also don't notice these things. Since you don't want to be next on the SUV. Yeah, there's room for one more if you make a fuss. I had a boss who committed medical malpractice regularly. It took me longer than I would have expected of me to realize he didn't just have a streak of bad luck but was grossly incompetent. Think Dr. Death levels of malpractice. If you have listened to the podcast. Nobody else cared really. Often not willing to see instances of negligence. Wrong decisions being made. People dying. Even telling me he's a nice guy or everything was fine. I was being unfair crazy. After living through nearly a year of gaslighting, shrugging and several instances of me trying to convince people above my pay grade to care, I did give up mostly and then quit. He's still working. Had a guy who used to work where I do, we'll call him Jeff. He was a level above me on the org chart, but still below the CEO. They started to work on a project and announced to the staff, the board and shareholders, but things didn't make sense. A few other employees saw what I was seeing and started to ask questions about how money was going to be handled, how other resources were going to be allocated and what the long-term plans were. We were all sidelined and told we were being negative. Jeff treated me and my other co-workers as if he was a genius and we were all his minions even though we were in different departments. Long story short, launch day for this new project came and the numbers weren't there. But Jeff was still blaming the rest of the organization. Things fell apart fast and we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and hundreds of customers. Jeff runs his own company now and just announced a new project to his shareholders. When the Fire Festival documentaries came out, I texted a friend of mine who worked at that company at the time all of this was going down. I told him to them both and tell me who Billy McFarland reminds him of. 20 minutes later I get a text, OMG it's Jeff. The whole time Jeff was doing his thing everyone acted like Jeff was a genius. He could raise money, motivate a crowd, and believed he could talk his way into and out of anything. It was amazing how similar he is to Billy McFarland. The only difference is Jeff hasn't been caught doing anything illegal yet. Yet is an important word here. I'm starting to wonder if I'm crazy that I think it's a big deal every time news comes out about another data leak or a website or app hoarding and abusing our data. No one does anything. Stops using anything or even cares an hour later. We have no privacy anymore and there are no consequences ever for someone mishandling personal information. But no one seems to care. And now people seem to be intentionally letting it happen to them. Millions of people have gone out and bought devices to bring into their home to listen to their private conversations. Why does no one cares about this? You are not alone in thinking this. It's crazy and it keeps happening. Company announces massive data leak. Company vows to improve. Company announces another leak months later. There was a gas leak in the building where my first morning college class was held. The class still met. There was still a strong gas smell. So I questioned the safety of the situation. The teacher mocked me for being concerned and sarcastically said that he wouldn't take attendance if anyone wanted to leave. I was the only one who did. I had to text my husband to confirm that I was being reasonable. Our effing building caught on fire at work and the fire alarm goes off. So I run outside. And no one else comes out. They were all sitting at their desks working with the 100 decibel fire alarm going off. I opened the door and yelled, "That is a fire alarm." 4 people came out. The fire department was pissed that no one exited the building. We ended up having to do a bunch of drills. I was walking to school and approaching a crossroad. I was 20 meters from the crossroad and a very short fat person in a yellow robe with a pointy hat walked over the road and nobody looked. Just me switching between staring at the fat wizard, the other people on the sidewalks and softly saying, "What the hell?" A group of dudes, 6 of them aged between 17 and 18, started openly talking about S during our ed class. I don't mean the usual hookup kind of talk. I mean going into graphic detail about each of their SUAL endeavors and how exactly they did it. Down to the messes they made at the end. This was in a class of 9 people and I was the only woman in it besides the teacher. The other 2 guys just sat and listened like it was normal. I remember hearing a classmate telling us how he and his dad ran over a neighbor's dog in their car. And how hilarious it was when the neighbor came running out screaming and crying like a little bee. I was the only one in the room who wasn't laughing. Public schools are bone deep evil places. We have a local superhero in our town. Polaraman. Goes around dressed in full costume all the time and helps out people around town. Really nice guy. I think he's on disability or something so he can't work, but he still wants to make the world a better place. The best part is new people seeing him for the first time and everybody else just being like, "Oh, that's just Polaraman. Polaraman. He's wonderful." A few years back I liked a girl and she invited me to her youth group. Everything was going fine. Until the pastor said all to call and then everyone walked up to the front and started rolling around. I really wish I was making this up. There were even people holding down other people as they were shaking rolling. Afterwards we all went to Pizza Hut and acted as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Let my guess, they were a Pentecostal church. Exactly. I was having dinner with my parents, my sister and her husband. Somehow the topic of abuse came up and my parents said how they never resorted to physical abuse in their marriage, and my Bill turned to my sister and said, "I mean, I've only hit you a couple of times, but only when it was serious." My sister's face turned red. She defended why it happened, then laughed it off. Meanwhile I'm absolutely shocked and disgusted by this, and my parents joined them and laughed along as well and says it happens. I was more shocked that my parents didn't react properly, and to this day I'll never understand it. My husband knows if he ever put a hand on me ever even once for anything, we're done. We have a good relationship and I could never see him doing that. But there would be absolutely no second chances for something like that. Crazy, they all acted like it was okay. Pretty much every time I see anyone else parent, they ignore bad behavior when it's cute and reinforce it by laughing. It blows my effing mind. This is why my 2 nephews, and soon my niece, all need speech therapy. Their mom leaves them with their grandparents who think it's just adorable that they say, "I need to go bathroom." So they giggle and applaud this life-changing developmental issue which could have been fixed with mild correction and actual education. The oldest one is so tired of being teased for it, and so frustrated by being unable to correct it, that he now has anger issues and is in 3 kinds of counseling a week. All because UFine thought it was cute. My husband's parents are like this. They laugh at bad behavior and cuss in front of our youngest and laugh when he would repeat it. He stayed with them for 1 month one summer and I had to undo all the bad she picked up. I won't let him go for that long ever again because they don't respect my wishes as his mother not to do this. They also have my son pronouncing words incorrectly because they do also. Which isn't really their fault. It's how they grew up too. Like 7 and 11 instead of 7 and 11. I thought the town they lived in was called Hummerville for a whole year cause that's how they pronounced it until we drove a different way one time and there was a sign that said welcome to Hermanville. I couldn't wrap my head around Little Mayo. Probably my ex-co-worker, which I'll call Buttrubber. He would do some exceedingly inappropriate schwile at work and everyone just shrugged or went along with it. He rubbed his A on my pregnant co-worker's stomach while both giggled and saying no no no. He wanted the same co-worker to stamp his A while he positioned it at her. He was also a total bully. Mean and immature and a total coward. There was just so much of this and my boss was just like, what do you want me to do about it? This place has always been like this. Which explained why this shithole was always this way. So I contacted HR and they investigated and he was fired shortly thereafter. Pretty much everyone was confused he was gone except for a few awesome people. If I wasn't blessed with a keen sense of reality and was absolutely grounded, I would think I was crazy for having a problem with this. Why do some people actually accept this kind of nonsense? It's usually a phenomenon known as missing stare. The gist is people get so used to the problem, they forget it's fixable. And even think it's strange when someone takes action.